for fundamental transformation of American capitalist society.
The blackened house was utterly destroyed by the Israeli army. Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to The Struggle. The Struggle is shown on 23 cable stations from Burlington, Vermont to Manhattan, New York. Our website is thestruggle.org. Our YouTube channel, Struggle Video Media. Every year there's a massive gathering in New York City called the Left Forum. This year was the biggest yet, with over 4,000 people participating. We'll start our program with an exciting talk by philosopher and activist Cornel West.
Oh yes, we embrace the reformers, those who want to tinker. Okay, if you want to be incremental, fine, but just don't stop there. We're calling for fundamental transformation of American capitalist society with its empire, keeping track of a vicious legacy of white supremacy, male supremacy. We have no room for anti-Jewish hatred, or anti-Arab hatred, or anti-Muslim hatred, and we're keeping track of the pressures, gay brothers, lesbian sisters, and the transgender and bisexual, but we focus it also on the children, and I don't know about you, but I also focus on the new Jim Crow. The vicious prison industrial complex and its relation to the Wall Street oligarchy plutocratic complex with vicious crimes being committed, but not one Wall Street executive going to jail. Let Jamal and the teacher get caught with a crack bag off to jail. I've been teaching in prison for 37 years. I teach a course on Friday night at Broadway, and we have a wonderful time with 150 brothers, 62% of them in there for soft drugs, and lo and behold, the vicious kinds of crimes committed in high places. They're having tea at the White House. Head of J.P. Morgan Chase. What's his name? Jeremy Diamond. Yeah, we're talking about you, Brother Diamond. So I'm a Christian, I love everybody, but I believe in telling the truth. And the condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak. Too many folk are suffering right now. So I want to begin by invoking the great W.B. Du Bois, because it is true. Sister Amy, you're absolutely right. We've lost Maya Angelou, we've lost Vincent Harding, we've lost Amer Baraka, we've lost Olame Breath, we've lost so many freedom fighters. And each time I come to this gathering, I think, oh, Brother Harry Magdoff, and I think of Paul Sweezy, and I think of, now Bogdan's still around though, isn't he? Bogdan Dinich. He hasn't passed, has he? He's still strong. Thank God Almighty. I haven't seen him in years. We've been at it for 30 years now, Brother Stanley. 30 years. Came up with the idea, it was Democratic Socialists of America. I know a lot of our revolutionary brothers and sisters kind of hard on us DSA folk. You think we're all reformers, that's a lie. We got revolutionaries there. Oh yes, indeed. I see Brother Carl Dixon there, and he's a bona fide revolutionary communist, been to jail with him many occasions. We called for to stop mass incarceration in October, day after day after day. Say, Brother West, how come you spend so much time with a revolutionary communist? You know you a Jesus-loving free black man trying to keep track of the poor and working class? That's right. Because we believe in overlap. There's a revolutionary Muslim named Malcolm X. We believe in overlap. There's a revolutionary Buddhist named Bell Hooks. We believe in overlap. Visionary, prophetic, towering figure, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. Legacy still alive. We believe in overlap. And of course, most of y'all are secular, agnostic, and atheistic. That's beautiful too. That's beautiful too. But I want to begin by invoking Du Bois, and I'm going to be very brief. He raised 4 questions, 89 years old. He emerges from the court. He's in shackles. Why? One, because like Malcolm and Martin, when they tried to come together in June 1964 to put the United States on trial in front of the United Nations for the violation of human rights in relation to black people, Du Bois had just taken the United States, put him on trial in the United Nations, he and Paul Robeson, under FBI surveillance. And at 89 years old, he says, I have something still to say. I embark on writing 3 novels. And in that first novel, turn to page 275, The Ordeal of Mansard. What you got to say, Brother Du Bois, after all of your struggle, trying to keep track of the dignity and decency of poor and working people, those Frantz Fanon called the wretched of the earth. What you got to say? 4 questions. How does integrity face oppression? You're going to see a whole lot of wrestling with intellectual integrity in the face of oppression in the next few days. That's what this gathering is all about. That's why Brother Seth Adler and the others bring us together. And by integrity, I'm talking about willingness to think critically, vigorously from the vantage point of poor and working people, to speak candidly, unintimidated, plain, frank speech in the face of powers that be, but also to be willing to sacrifice your popularity, sacrifice your mainstream acceptance, sacrifice your establishmentarian affirmation in the name of something bigger than you, truth and justice. So we're not talking about cupidity. Nobody's here because of love of money. We all need money. Wu-Tang Clan, say cream. Cash rules everything around me, but it doesn't have to rule me. It's around me. It doesn't have to rule me. We attempt to be a people of integrity in a moment in which the American empire is in relative decline. It's an undeniable decay. Look at the situation of our schools. Look at the souls of our children. Look at the condition of working people. Look at the ways in which women are being dehumanized, viciously attacked. Look at the way in which oligarchs and plutocrats have colonized the courts, White House, Congress. Look at those empirical tentacles keep track of those precious children in Pakistan and Yemen and in Somalia with U.S. drones dropping bombs on them. 224 children in counting. Every child has the same value as a child born in Newtown, Connecticut, born on the east side of Los Angeles, born in Tel Aviv, born in the West Bank, born in Ethiopia, Guatemala, anywhere in the world. We attempt to be a people of integrity. Second question of the great Du Bois, what does honesty do in the face of deception? And we're dealing with organized forms of deception. It's a lie white supremacy is, male supremacy is, homophobia is, losing sight of the humanity of working people and others is. Organized deception intimately connected with arbitrary uses of power, especially from above. How do we become honest people? And when you talk about integrity, when you talk about honesty, it cuts across ideology. We're not talking about an ism. We're talking about a certain kind of people, a certain group of people who are committed to something bigger than them, radically against the odds, precisely because what Sister Amy understands so well, the weapons of mass distraction shaped by a corporate multiplex when it comes to media. That's why we love Sister Amy so. Oh yes, she's willing to allow her voices to tell the truth from the vantage point of the wretched of the earth. Sheer honesty. Third question of Du Bois, what does decency do in the face of insult? We can add assault. We can add attack. We can add character assassination. And yes, some of us must be willing to die. There is no movement for change, fundamental change, revolution, unless there's willingness on behalf of somebody to die. That's a fundamental fact. If all of us come together and we have no one here willing to die for the cause, in a sense it's still sounding brass and tinkling cymbal. And that's especially when it comes to black and brown and red people. Especially when it comes to vicious legacies of white supremacy. People trying to keep track of those who want to tell the truth. trying to expose the lies and try to bear witness in their own fallible way. We're not talking about self-righteousness. We're talking about a willingness to move forward in the face of the darkness, trying to keep that flickering candle alive that highlights the plight of those who are rendered invisible. That's what we're talking about. Thank God for Black Agenda Report. I saw Brother Bruce come through and before so many of the others. Sister Nellie and others. We got to keep track of this vicious attempt to try to corporatize and marketize the internet so that we can't follow the Negro national anthem of lifting every voice. No, they don't want the voices of those who are speaking from the vantage point of poor and working people. They want echoes of those who reflect either the mean-spirited cold-heartedness of right-wing Republican Party policies or the milquetoast, spineless neoliberal policies of the Democratic Party. Both of them just echoes of oligarchic power, echoes of plutocratic power, don't want to tell the truth about the suffering beneath. The truth is not in the middle. The truth is beneath the lies of so much of our public discussion. I'm going to sit down. But we're here because we're on fire. And we're on fire because too many of our precious fellow citizens are lukewarm. They're too callous and indifferent to the plight of our schools being privatized, to the vicious attacks on the trade union movement. They're too callous and different when it comes to oligarchs and plutocrats on Wall Street and corporate elites who have been getting away with financial murder. They're too callous and indifferent when it comes to the national security state and the surveillance expansion that Brother Edward Snowden. Thank God for Brother Snowden. Thank God for Brother Snowden. Thank God for Chelsea Manning. Thank God for John Turiodu. Thank God for, they're not just whistleblowers, they're human beings who want to decide to be persons of integrity and honesty and decency. Last question, how does virtue meet brute force? Oh, here's the question. Brute force. You can't talk about change in America, reform or revolution, unless you come to terms with the FBI and the CIA and the police and the army and the cannons and the cybertizing weaponry and so forth and so on. That's what we're up against. That's why people come to us and say, oh, Brother West, y'all talking about revolution. You know America, even if it needs revolution, it only has the capacity for counter-revolution because the right-wing forces are so strong. For every socialist, you got 15 members of the Ku Klux Klan. Oh, this is America, y'all. Let's be honest about it. Our struggle is not confined to the United States. We got brothers and sisters in Latin America. We got brothers and sisters in Asia. We got brothers and sisters in Africa and Europe, all around the world. This is a global affair. You got a global capitalist economy. You got a global working class. White supremacy, male supremacy, homophobia, anti-Jewish and anti-Arab hatred, global phenomena. So let's not become so obsessed just with the USA that we can become so depressed when we look around.
Now some video from the West Bank town of Zeit. It's actually from late February. The blackened house was utterly destroyed by the Israeli army. Muataz Washaha was killed inside. This is how the Israeli paper of record, Haaretz, reports on the killing of the 24-year-old man. Israeli security forces early Thursday killed a wanted Palestinian man suspected of plotting to carry out a terrorist attack. So this is how the IDF treats a suspect. They don't bother with the supposed Palestinian government in the West Bank, which is in charge of Zeit. They just surround the house, and when the suspect doesn't come out to get arrested, they just destroy it with him inside. But it gets worse. Here's another description by our correspondent, Juliana Hamada. Israeli soldiers arrived at the village in the early morning hours, cordoned off the streets leading to his home, surrounded it with jeeps, troop carriers, and an armored bulldozer known in Palestinian parlance as the Jarafa. When all the necessary equipment and personnel were in place, the soldiers called out to the Washaha family to come out of the house and to lie on the pavement face down. The parents and younger siblings did so at gunpoint, and the soldiers proceeded to question them at gunpoint. The soldiers specifically wanted Muataz, but soon it was apparent that he had not exited the home, and his mother confirmed he was still inside. Mr. Washaha was wanted by the Israeli army because of his political activities. They claimed he was a local organizer for the Popular Front of the Liberation of Palestine. He had been imprisoned by the Israelis previously and refused to give himself up willingly, knowing what would be in store for him if he did. Meanwhile, Washaha's brothers and cousins, who had exited the home and did not resist arrest, were handcuffed and subjected to beatings with truncheons, all the while being kicked by soldiers in front of their parents, sisters, and cousins. They were subsequently arrested and taken to prison in Israel. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here. The Washaha family looked on in stunned belief as the soldiers proceeded in this way to wreck their home while their son Muataz was inside. The mother repeatedly begged the soldiers to allow her to bring the son out, to no avail. They completely ignored her. It took about 20 minutes, at which point the soldiers fired 3 rockets into the home through the newly created rectangular openings. Besides causing a fire inside the home, at least one of the rockets was the means of killing Washaha. It was understood that the rocket was the cause of death because of the grievous injury to his face and head, which was unlikely to have occurred from some other cause. After the fire had burned for an hour, a Palestinian Authority fire truck was allowed to pump water on the fire, to no avail, as the damage had already been done. Strangely, suffocating Washaha with tear gas, taking off his head with a rocket, and burning the interior of the home was not enough for the soldiers. They dragged his body from his home by his feet, and when he was outside and in front of his family, they shot him 62 times, mostly at point-blank range in his torso. Complete article is on our website. You'll notice at no time is there a description of Washaha being armed or shooting at the Israelis. This is how the IDF treats a wanted suspect.
I
am Thayer Washaha, brother of the Shaheed Muataz Washaha. I ask all the world to stop support of this occupation. I am asking for the end of this occupation in terms of the supply of money that supports this occupation. I'm asking people of the world to support resistance to this occupation through the academic, economic, cultural, and social boycott of Israel. I am Shuruk Washaha, sister of the Shaheed Muataz Washaha. This is our family's home. I show you the work of the occupation. This is where the occupiers killed my brother while he was in the home with their treacherous weapons, while at the same time destroying our home. I ask you, why should we supply Israel with our money for things that we buy from them while they take our taxes and they don't return the value? There can be no normalization with the occupation. I ask the world and all institutions that deal with Israel to boycott Israel and to not exchange goods and services through buying and selling with Israel. This appeal is a type of resistance and something that everyone can do. We record this a month after Amer Jubran was disappeared by Jordanian secret police. They came for him in the middle of the night, grabbed him, and no one has heard anything about him since. Faxes and emails to the Jordanian embassy are not returned with any information. TSVN first heard of Amer Jubran and his work for Palestinian rights a dozen years ago when he was a legal immigrant in the Boston and Providence area. We interviewed him at an anti-war demonstration. He said something to cause the ire of federal authorities. They arrested him and tried to make him an informer. When he refused, they slapped immigration charges against him. He appeared to be winning his immigration case, but then it became clear to him that the government was going to pursue charges again and again against him or his friends, and so he agreed to a voluntary deportation. I interviewed him in 2003. I'll show a little bit of it now. I apologize in advance for the poor quality of the old video.
The immigration matter became a classic witch hunt. They use it and they bring all sorts of garbage technicalities and they use it to build case after case after case. So the decision in the immigration case becomes irrelevant. Whether I win it or not, it's going to generate enough hassle, enough trouble, if not for me, for my ex. If not for my ex, for these friends or ex-girlfriends that I had. So the principal position that I felt needs to be taken is not to participate in hanging myself. It was a stacked deck, and you said, well, then I'll just leave the country. So you're going to go back to the Middle East? I'm going back to Jordan this Saturday or Tuesday.
As of June 5th, Amer Jubran has been in a Jordanian prison for 1 month without charge or legal counsel. Hundreds of people from around the world have asked for information about him or for his outright release, including state representatives, Rhode Island Senator Whitehouse, and the National Lawyers Guild. The amount of your tax money that goes to Jordan has been growing by leaps and bounds since 2011, when it was $600 million, to over $1 billion now. One would think they would have the decency to answer an inquiry by a U.S. senator. To help out with finding out what happened to Amer Jubran, go to Facebook and search for Free Amer Jubran. Now, a music rap by RP called Nablus, Palestine is occupied.
Yeah, it's RP. Coming straight out of Nablus, boy. Yeah, let's go. Murder in the microphone, I bet I got you feeling me. Sick of my surroundings, so I jetted off to Philistine. Mama hugged me and she kissed me goodbye. When we ended our embrace, she had some mist in her eye, but she knew her baby boy was straight up fixing to ride. You only have one shot and I'm not living to die. She knows the life I've led has made me grow into a hardened man, but still it's tough to see me go into a foreign land. Dolo in a month, so no more rocking with my faculty. Spent the night and now I'm crossing over Allenby, sitting there for hours with the sweat on my skin. Though I have to go to Nablus, they ain't letting me in. Israelis mugging hard, I guess I'm beefing with the cannibals. With the Palestinians, they're treating them like animals. 7 hours later and I'm rushing the gate. There's nothing that a soul can do when something is fake. Palestine is occupied, the situation's sickening. Thankfully my destiny has placed me in the thick of things. Whatever that you're going through, you have to face it stoically. At first I wasn't sure, but how this place has grown on me. Louisville's my #1, yeah, Nablus is my #2. But don't worry, boo, you love me, and I love you too. A lesson that I've learned, never trust an Israeli. Ana min America, lekin ana Philistini. Made it to the Holy Land, it's popping off, you heard me. Took a bus to Jericho and hopped into a service. Mountains passing by, don't know where I'm riding to. The driver's saying something, I don't have the slightest clue. When you come in here, they tell you it's a scary scene, but that's not true between Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim. Living with the people, no one's threatening my life. Coming from America, I've settled it nice. If your propaganda's normal, there's confusing abnormalities. The only thing exploding is Nablus hospitality. Israelis raid the city, many times they enter it. killing people, and you tell me they're not terrorists. What they say is false, I know, cause I've been shown the proof. It doesn't matter what they claim, because I know the truth. No matter what they utter, it means nothing to me. And that'll never change until this country is free. Palestine is occupied, the situation's sickening. Thankfully my destiny has placed me in the thick of things. Whatever that you're going through, you have to face it stoically. At first I wasn't sure, but how this place has grown on me. Louisville's my number one, yeah, Nablus is my number two. But don't worry, boo, you love me, and I love you too. A lesson that I've learned, never trust an Israeli. Ana min America, lekin ana Philistini. Take a trip inside your mind, come on bro, just roll with me. From the Dua, let us go inside the old city. Nablus history is something that you have to hear. It's amazing cause it's dating back 2,000 years. It's hard for me to tell you how it truly is, cause talk is cheap. You'll never fully understand it till you walk the streets. The Mamluks and the Ottomans are some of those who waited through. Saladin, the Byzantines, the Romans and Crusaders too. The thought of how it was, it isn't really hard to venture. Take a look around, you see it in the architecture. The atmosphere is really telling of the city's culture. The people moving, all the smells and all the pretty colors. I'm a poet, so whenever I get sentimental, you can bet that I'ma go and get my pen and pencil. Rapping is a talent and I got it from God. And for that very reason I say alhamdulillah. Palestine is occupied, the situation's sickening. Thankfully my destiny has placed me in the thick of things. Whatever that you're going through, you have to face it stoically. At first I wasn't sure, but how this place has grown on me. Louisville's my number one, yeah, Nablus is my number two. But don't worry, boo, you love me, and I love you too. A lesson that I've learned, never trust an Israeli. Ana min America, lekin ana Philistini. Palestine is occupied, the situation's sickening. Thankfully my destiny has placed me in the thick of things. Whatever that you're going through, you have to face it stoically. At first I wasn't sure, but how this place has grown on me. Louisville's my number one, yeah, Nablus is my number two. But don't worry, boo, you love me, and I love you too. A lesson that I've learned, never trust an Israeli. Ana min America, lekin ana Philistini. I'm a poet, so whenever I get sentimental, you can bet that I'ma go and get my pen and pencil. Rapping is a talent and I got it from God. And for that very reason I say alhamdulillah. Yeah, the revolutionary poet. Ha! Palestine, we out, y'all. Yalla.
That's our program for today. See us next week at this time. I'm Stanley Heller, and this is The Struggle.